Hello, welcome to another English Sparkling with Tweedy video on this wonderfully blustery, quite cold, rainy day. I think, is a storm inbound? I forget, I've lost track of this. I've been fiddling around with lighting. Sorry, that's probably a bad position to put it. I have no idea what I'm doing, do I? Have to hold on to the glass to stop it blowing over in the wind. This is a producer I had never heard of before. I think they're very small and a little bit of a probably slightly old-fashioned English wine producer. Chiltern Valley Vineyard and Winery and Brewery. I think they also make real ale on site. I was in the Hambledon Valley earlier this week. It's a beautiful part of the Chilterns, actually. I was alerted to its existence by a wonderful video from Mr. WC21 brackets UK Productions Limited. I'll put a link to that. So it has Turville, very pretty village at the top, Hambledon, another very pretty village at the bottom, and then somewhere in the middle, not right on the sort of main road that goes through the valley, but there's a little side road off to the Chiltern Valley Vineyard slash Brewery slash Winery. This is their sparkling, which I have to admit I partly just bought because it was on special offer. They were doing 20% off for November, so this came in at under 30 quid. I think the normal price is 32, so whatever 20% off that is. It's 100% Sauvignon Blanc, a grape that, to be honest, I don't generally have a great time with unless it's made by Breaky Bottom. As I've often said, probably it's a bit of a hangover from the early days of English winemaking. I thought it might be interesting because they have a winery on site here. There was something particularly nice about this farm-to-table concept of the grapes grown in their own vineyard and the wine made on site, and then, you know, buying it from the wine shop there, the cellar door shop. As it turns out, when I spoke to the, I guess the chap was actually the proprietor, although they do grow a variety of different grapes there, the Sauvignon Blanc is actually one that they buy in. So I think this is still made in their winery, I believe, possibly. At least the base wines, possibly. Sometimes producers like Breaky Bottom make the base wines on site, and then the secondary fermentation, the sort of traditional method, sparkling wine stuff, they send off to another producer, because if you're going to do that at scale, you need quite specialist equipment for riddling and disgorging and all that kind of stuff. So at least some part of this is actually made in their winery, and I think it's impressive that you can see the workings of their winery in that cellar door shop. Perhaps another wine from them would have been a better choice to get that sort of full experience of something grown and then vinified all on the premises. I think it's the still wines that they grow the grapes for there on site. But anyway, this is what I went for, and this is a channel all about English sparkling, so a still wine would be a bit out of place here. Bit of a difficult cork. There we go. So as I say, I don't have particularly high hopes for this because Sauvignon Blanc, I've only ever really enjoyed it from Breaky Bottom, and all the other producers' versions of it I've tried have been, you know, kind of okay, but sort of lacking something. So what do we have on the nose here? I suppose there is some version of green apple there, orchard fruity kind of note. There is, as always with Sauvignon Blanc, a little bit of the sort of grassy, herbaceous notes you often get along with that. But it can often have Chardonnay-like qualities to it. So the similarity there with the green apple, at least that's one of the ways that Chardonnay expresses here in England. Not getting a lot of autolytic character from that. I think it said it was aged on the lees for 18 months. It's certainly not incredibly short, but that's, you know, medium to short-ish duration compared to other English sparklings. Slightly nicer than I expected there on the palate. Sorry about the wind noise. Storm raging around me. Green apple notes, again, they're slightly candied edge to it, which is quite nice. There's an interesting sort of bitter aftertaste. It's a little bit reminiscent of bitter lemon, for example. I would still say overall the fruit character here veers more apple than it does citrus, but there's a bitter botanical sort of tanginess to that, also reminiscent of, you know, perhaps tonic water, that kind of thing. I think the balance is quite nice there. There is a little bit of zing, but certainly not too much. There's a little bit of sweetness and certainly not too much. I think tanginess is perhaps a more appropriate word here than zinginess. Green apple sort of tanginess, and then that interesting extra sort of botanical kind of note. Relatively straightforward in a way, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's got a nice kind of fruit expression, and I suppose that addition of that slightly botanical note gives it an extra added layer of interest and complexity. It's all right. It's really quite drinkable, that. They clearly know what they are doing here at Chiltern Valley. If that is entirely their own handiwork, then I I take my hat off to them. I think that's it's a very competently well made. I sound a bit patronising, don't I? Well, who am I to tell a winemaker whether they know what they're doing? Of course they know what they're doing. They're not an idiot like me telling them that they know what they're doing. But I do think that's a pretty competent traditional method sparkling wine, traditional method English sparkling wine. I would say a better than average Sauvignon Blanc English sparkling as well. It can end up being a little bit sort of soapy, but that has nice fruit character, relatively nice mouthfeel, it's nicely balanced. I think that's really quite drinkable. So well done, Chiltern Valley. And it's nice to have seen, presumably, the tanks where this was made. Cheers.